ครับผมที่มันผม
Hi, we want to start with the greetings from the islands. But we start out from Hawaii since we are in Hawaii. Aloha,
Yahweh,
Lenwo,
Ekasalel,
Kaselelia, Raranim, Kaselelia Mango, yes, Raranim,
Benim from CHUT. Benalim.
Mungetin,
Morgan from Yap.
Lenwa from Koshai.
Lenwo, yeah, welcome, Kusrai. Hafade,
Half a day, Tiro from the CNMI.
Half a day.
yay, and Ali.
Ali Sandy, Ali.
Welcome. We would like to welcome everyone to GEM webinar series, Weaving Together Ways to Read Our Lands, Skies, and Waters. And my name is Kathy Martin, and my partner is
My name is Ishiwara, Marshall Islands, Yahweh.
Ishiwada Nomae, is a native of the Marshall Islands and is the youngest of 6 siblings. He belongs to the Riparkit Joey clan. Ishiwata is currently an eco-literacy specialist at Braille and began working on GEM in 2018. Previously, Ishiwata was an elementary and high school teacher, having taught in Chaluit and Majuro. He also studied Japanese language and hotel management in Kobe and Osaka, Japan, and continues to work with students as a debate club volunteer and Japanese language contest judge. Ishiwada earned his bachelor's degree in teaching secondary math and science education from the University of Maine at Fort Kent. After joining GEM as a facilitator, guiding students in place-based education, he has gained more understanding of the RMI, skies, lands, and seas. Welcome my partner for this week, Ishiwata.
Right, and thank you, Kathy. Oh my gosh, you know so much about me.
Yay!
All right, so let me introduce my partner, Kathy Martin, is a native of the island of Peace, Penil, in CHUT, in the Federated States of Micronesia. She's a teacher specialist for Braille and the extension educator at the University of Guam, Micronesia. Geriatric Workforce Enhancement Program. She has her bachelor's and master's degree in social work. She was a teacher at Saraman CHUT. Okay, so that's Kathy Martin.
Thank you.
All right.
Again, welcome. Welcome to the GEM series conference. We have a few reminders for our time together. You are welcome to keep your cameras on during the webinar, but please mute yourself if you are not speaking. You are welcome to type any questions in the chat box. If you have any questions, logistics questions, Hendrik and Corinne, who are our operators, can help you. They will be monitoring the chat box. We are also live streaming on Facebook. So if you are following the Braille's Facebook page, please feel free to tag others to join us there. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
To start, of our webinar series, we want to invite our GEM principal investigator, Corinne Paris, to make opening remarks. Welcome, Corinne.
Hi, everyone. It's good to see all these familiar faces. I'm so excited that you guys are here and I'm here with you. So welcome to the GEM Summer webinar series. We're going to be together for a few days. And our theme this week is weaving together ways to read our land, skies, and waters. This is the first independent, largest gathering of GEM. We might have done this in person in another time, but here we are, and we get to do this virtually. And I think in a lot of ways, it lets us bring more partners together because there's people that I see, some really familiar names that spoke into this project early on and continue to live on in our work in that way, but we haven't seen you guys in a while. So it's really exciting to see these faces. And I also see some new names. So if you haven't been part of GEM before, maybe you came across the invitation from a colleague or on Facebook, I'll give you the little elevator speech just so you know what we're talking about while we're here. So GEM is Geoliteracy Education in Micronesia. And we are an advancing informal STEM learning project funded by the National Science Foundation. So for GEM started in 2016, and technically this is the final year, although we'll probably have another year to do some work together and finish up what's been going on. And so GEM, its original intention was to demonstrate the potential for effective intergenerational informal learning around geoliteracy. And we've been doing that through the creation of informal STEM learning teams, or ISLETs. So you'll hear ISLETs quite a bit while you're with us together. So those are informal STEM learning teams. And our ISLETs have been created and recreated across the Micronesian region. So we've had ISLETs in Palau, Yap, CHUT, Pohnpei, Koshai, and the Marshalls. And over the 5 years, we've actually had 30 ISLET groups, which is pretty phenomenal. I think for those of you guys that were at the beginning, there was originally like 5 or 6, and over time it's grown to 30. So in those 30 ISLETs, we are looking at geoliteracy and geography in different ways. So there's 6 types of ISLETs. So there's 6 ISLETs, and in kind of thinking about them in 2 different categories, there's a island series group of ISLETs, and those groups are coming to understanding our places through a community lens. So we've got island observer ISLETs that are looking at the ocean, observing the ocean and land and atmosphere through traditional worldviews and STEM together. And in some ways that has looked like phenology, studies of breadfruit in particular. We've also got Island Explorer ISLETs, and those groups are documenting places through space and time. Oops, I lost my video. Yeah, hopefully you can see me again. Okay, so in those groups, our Island Explorer groups, we've been gathering stories and talking with elders about traditional practices. We also have Island Innovator ISLETs, and those Innovator ISLETs are creating physical and digital models of places. And so exploring our places through those physical models and digital means. We've got geoscience ISLET. So geoscience and conservation has been working on mapping protected areas. We've got geoscience and education groups, ISLETs that are using place and their places as a way of learning about STEM. So we've got a lot of student groups. And we've got a few of them with us today. And we also have geoscience and planning ISLETs. And those ISLETs are looking at GIS mapping using remote sensing and field studies to create infrastructure maps that are given to municipal governments to use for broader planning purposes. And so there's tons of, over the last 5 years, our staff has been working to create products with our community partners, and that's look like maps and posters and billboards and songs. And over the next few days, you'll see a number of those products. And the point of the products, our goal and our intention with those products is to help those who are creating the products and those who are using the products to delve deeper into our guiding question. And for GEM, what we've been looking at is how do we read the skies, the land, and the waters? And how do we learn from those texts in order to make decisions that positively affect ourselves and our communities? And so the theme for this week, the weaving together, the ways that we read our lands and skies and waters, has become kind of a coming together for us. And that's what we're hoping for this week. So we're now, like I said earlier, we're now at our 5th year. We're coming towards the end, nearing the end of the program. And over the 5 years, staff have been working alongside our elders and our educators and our youth to think deeply about our guiding question. And while developing these products, while doing these community events and getting students together and making those posters and billboards and songs, we've seen patterns emerge and unique perspectives emerge about how we read our places. And so this week is about us coming together and sharing with each other. If you've been part of the ISLETs, so this is about sharing with each other and sharing with others. So there's lots of people who haven't been part of our ISLETs before. So sharing and celebrating the hard work that has been put into GEM. And so this isn't necessarily a finale, although we're close to the end of the program. We're hoping this is more of an extension of our conversation. So we're really excited that our ISLETs are coming together, and there's others who maybe are new or haven't been part of GEM before. We're really happy that you're here. So thank you, and I'm looking forward to the rest of our time together today and for the week. I'll shoot it back over to our MCs.
Thank you, Ms. Corinne. And that is Corinne Paris, the GEM Principal Investigator, and she is from the island of Oahu in Hawaii. She was raised in a Hapa, Hawaii, mixed Hawaiian family with roots in Hawaii's Oiwi traditions and plantation history. She is currently the program director at PREL and like I said, the principal investigator for GEM. Corinne also leads other work related to STEM and place-based learning, including a newcomer student services program for students newly arrived to Hawaii from Micronesia and around the world. Corinne has a background in conservation biology and earned a master's degree in urban and regional planning from the University of Hawaii at Manoa. I'm going to give Corinne to introduce our keynote speaker for today. So back to you, Miss Corinne.
Hello. Yes, so I'm also really looking forward to this. So the next person to speak is a very special speaker, very special to GEM. Our keynote speaker for this afternoon and evening is Dr. Emerson Odengo. And Emerson is the firstborn child of Filipino immigrants to the US. His mother is from Luzon and his father is from Mindanao. Emerson serves as the senior specialist in languages and literacies at Pacific Resources for Education and Learning. He is also the director of the Region 18 Comprehensive Center servicing the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, the Federated States of Micronesia, Guam, and Palau. Emerson previously worked with the Pacific Islands Climate Education Partnership and Geoliteracy Education in Micronesia. He is actually the original PI. So yes. And his work at PREL centers around multilingualism and multiculturalism in formal and informal learning contexts. Emerson received his PhD in linguistics from the University of Hawaii at Manoa. And for those of us in the audience, Emerson is gonna speak and you are welcome to ask questions in the chat box. And I'm going to be monitoring the chat box. Hendrik and I will be monitoring the chat box. And after Emerson is done, then we'll ask him a couple of questions. So feel free to throw questions in the chat and we'll look forward to a discussion with him. All right, Emerson, thanks for being here.
All right. Thank you so much, Corinne and Kathy and Ishiwata. All right. Phew, a little bit nervous here. Mabuhay sa inyong lahat. Ako si Emerson Odango. Nagpapasalamat ako sa inyong lahat sa ating pagtatagpo ngayong araw. In Tagalog, I just shared out greetings to you all. My name is Emerson Odango, and I am thankful for our meeting today. Really, just before I had a lot of notes prepared here, but just incredibly grateful and thankful to be invited and to be a part of this and to see so many familiar faces and new faces and names. This is really exciting. So thank you, everyone. I would like to start with sort of my small steps toward learning how I can do what I can to provide the acknowledgement to the land and to the indigenous peoples of where I am physically located. I used to be based out of the Honolulu office for PREL, but as of a few years ago, I moved back here to my hometown in Norfolk, Virginia. I live in an area that is historically the homeland of the Chesapeake tribe. This area also overlaps with the places that are associated with the Lumbee tribe, which is one of the largest tribes of North Carolina. My immediate area where I live, the city of Norfolk, it's part of the larger network of the Powhatan chiefdom. And I've been engaging in a process over many years now. And I honestly have to acknowledge that it really was during my time with the Pacific Islands Climate Education Partnership with PSEP that I really started to think hard about this, to learn about the indigenous peoples of my place where I am now. And I'm learning more about what it means to live in a place where Algonquian peoples have cultivated the lands for centuries upon centuries, and they still do. I'm going to share my screen here. Hopefully everyone is going to be able to see this. Give me 1 second. Can everyone see a map on your screens here? Thumbs up. All right. This map is something that I actually learned about through a comprehensive center meeting a few months ago, in which people did a virtual land acknowledgement, and they were providing a session in which multiple tribes had to be acknowledged. So they provided this website as a way of giving a visual to speak about the acknowledgement. I live here in this area in Hampton Roads. You can see the name here, Chesapeake, but this is where I live in Norfolk. So this map helps you identify the areas that are associated with the Chesapeake tribe and the Lumbee tribe. Just as a point of reference, a little bit further up north to the northwest is Williamsburg, Virginia, and Jamestown, Virginia, which is where the Jamestown settlements were located. And when I speak of the Powhatan tribe, I do mean the chiefdom of Powhatan, which includes his daughter, whom you may know as Pocahontas, but her other name is Matoaka. I also want to just share this map as well, a map from 1607 of this Powhatan chiefdom. Again, here is Norfolk, and here are a variety of other local tribes that were part of the chiefdom, and those tribal names are still very much a part of our area through place names and river names and other important elements of our local history. All right. So for a way to truly learn about what it means to understand what local knowledge means, what local indigenous knowledge means, I really had to learn about what it means to be in my place. And in this case, I would be in a place where I would use words such as raccoon or persimmon, or I would go to places such as Chesapeake as a city next to me, or Poquoson as a city where my sister works. And those are names of indigenous places and peoples. And I'm very grateful that I'm been on this process to learn what it means to be in this place and to learn from others. I'm grateful to the people whom I've met from the Nansemond tribe to my southwest and from the Mattaponi tribe to my northwest. I've been able to talk and learn from them and to see firsthand that their communities and their places and their connections to their land are very strong. And it's just another part of me to learn that my ability to thrive in this place, me and my family as immigrants from the Philippines to the United States, it is because of the very lands that we can grow our own food, or where we can fish in the rivers and bays. So I do gratefully acknowledge the people who have lived here before and who still live here now. I would also like to share, I'm still at my openings. I know this is a long one, but I got to do it right. I would also like to share an opening to acknowledge my language teachers who have taught me for many years now in Kapsan Moshlok, or in the Mortlakese language. Ipuatora ie Kapsan tiro o Fairoami. Tiro hana koa milikap yirir ar lefongir opal somerit koa. Tiro wami monson. Kulso renash fanson shufangan an randkai. Amoite poepe yorkaya fangan no wewe yoshfangan. Kulso shapur. I share my request to ask for pardon and guidance from all. I humbly beg the pardon and guidance, especially from our elders and also from our experts who are knowledgeable. I beg the pardon and guidance from all of us. I'm grateful for a meeting for these next few days, and may it be that we are here together to have good learning and good understanding with each other. Thank you very much. So I also have to admit, when we were watching the slideshow at the very beginning, it kind of got to me. For those who were there, who remember that kickoff meeting in Bay in 2017, maybe you also felt that nostalgia and those good memories of really putting the project together by being in person and learning with each other. So it's amazing. It's hard to believe that GEM is already in its 5th year, year 5 of a 5-year project. And as Corinne said, there's time as well to do another year just to wrap things up. But with that, I actually really want to start off by also sharing out my gratitude to my Prel colleagues, especially for Corinne for leading GEM, and especially for the past few years, for guiding it through, and to our module managers, Kanita and Paulina. Ever since that, I mean, you all saw the picture of them doing things like cutting out the pieces of paper for the GEM logo. They were keeping things running even during year 1, and I know they've been doing a great job all throughout the remainder. I'm also thankful to the Prel staff who have been able to grow with this project and who have been able to incorporate things that we all have learned from other Prel projects. We know that a lot of what GEM was doing was based off of the foundation of projects such as Maximize and PCEP. And this is just another great example of seeing how GEM has grown and been enriched by the fact that we have such amazing people who are sharing what we have learned across different projects into what we're working on together. And I'm especially grateful to all of you, all of us here, to all the ISLET members, to the project partners, guest speakers, to the experts, to the elders, to all of the audience members, all of you who are here to share and learn with each other. It's going to be an amazing next few days, and this is a really special moment. So thank you all. I'm really excited by this opportunity to reflect with you all about how GEM has grown and changed. And I'm also happy I've been able to brainstorm this with Corinne and Kanita a little bit to think about what I wanted to share out. And I think at least for me, I can frame it in how I have changed over the past few years, and how GEM, when I look at GEM now, based on how I looked at it 5 years ago or 4 years ago, I'm glad that I've grown and changed, and I'm looking forward to sharing that and hearing from you all too. One of the biggest pieces is that over the past 2 years, I have been in training for speech language pathology. So I'm trained to actually be a clinician who's able to help people address learning challenges or learning disorders through actually working on language in of itself. So this combination of being a researcher in linguistics, but also being a clinician in speech language pathology, it really has changed how I've understood the word literacy. And it really has changed. Like when I first heard the word literacy, I don't know, I guess the first time I ever really thought about it was when I was a Peace Corps volunteer and when I was teaching, and I knew that literacy was an important part of the classroom experience. But even back then, and even during my time at UH Manoa for my graduate degree in linguistics, and even when I started with Prel in 2015, I think my understanding of what literacy is back then is very different from what it is now, and it's really exciting. I'm glad that I'm learning and growing. And I can definitely say that when we were brainstorming this idea for GEM, when I was brought on board to think about what GEM could be and this idea of geoliteracy, I really had a naive understanding of literacy. I thought, oh, okay, literacy is just the ability to read and write, and let's just find a way to transfer that to reading and writing about our world. I thought that was a very simple way of looking at it. But again, a lot of things over the past few years, especially learning how to become a clinician in speech language pathology, has made me rethink what literacy means. And one way that I can kind of like frame this is going back to our guiding question. I know that the guiding question is going to be something that we're going to look at many times this week. Actually, yeah, let me just put it into the chat box as well, just so that we can have it as a reference. So if you don't remember it, or if you want to see it again in print, it's in the chat box. And this guiding question, it still resonates with me to this day. How do we read the skies, lands, and waters? And how do we learn from those things, those texts, in order to make decisions that are positively affecting ourselves and our communities? But I think a key piece about this question that I'm learning about, or I'm getting a better appreciation now, is adding one more word in front of it, or maybe two words. How do we learn and teach how to read the skies, lands, and waters? So learning and teaching geoliteracy, I think this is where my mind is now after these many years. Geoliteracy truly has to be learned and taught. It's just like any other kind of literacy. Even the things that we know as very familiar, like print literacy, reading and writing, numeracy, manipulating numbers, oralcy. Maybe that's a term that some of you are familiar with or not. Oralcy, the idea that our oral arts and oral literature is also a type of literacy. It's an oral literacy, but we have to learn it and teach it. And that means that all of us are both teachers and learners. I'm grateful that my colleague, Paulina, she and I will do an activity in a few days, and we're going to touch back on this idea of being lifelong learners of geoliteracy. So even as adults, it's a part of us. But I really do have seen over time and understood that geoliteracy, in order to learn it, we have to have a spirit of curiosity, humility, and the desire to experiment inside of us in order to be really receptive to geoliteracy. I mean, we can't just stay the same. We think that geoliteracy is just something to learn. We need to always be changing and adapting and thinking of it in new ways. I mean, our skies change, the land changes, the waters change, so we need to change as well with them to learn from them. But going back to those ideas of being curious, being humble, being wanting to experiment, how do we teach that to our children? How do we teach that to each other as colleagues? And I realized also that teaching geoliteracy, it truly has to be intentional. You can't just assume that just because you're growing up in a place where there's a lot of rich ecology around you, that's going to automatically kind of come into your senses just because you're around it. I'll be the first to admit that also. I grew up here in Southeast Virginia, where my parents and my elders would be able to grow things such as gabi, taro, or saging, bananas, or ampalaya, bitter melon. And I would be so grateful to eat that, to eat the fresh foods of our harvest. But when I was growing up as a child and as a teenager, I didn't make a direct connection between gardening and ecology and Filipino identity and my place. I didn't make that connection back then. It happened much, much later on as an adult. So I would, again, going back to that point, geoliteracy and appreciating place and local knowledge, it really has to be taught. It doesn't just happen automatically. So going to that idea of teaching, right? How do we teach the kinds of, maybe not even just skills, but even just teaching those core elements of who we are or who we want our children to be? Again, I keep going back to curiosity and humility. Helps you want to learn and experiment. That idea, it kind of connects to something that I've been learning about in the area of literacy research and speech language pathology. I'm going to share my screen one more time here, make sure that I get it up. And can I get some thumbs up if you can see an image on the screen? All right, thanks everyone. So this image is from a person named Pamela Snow. She has a background in cognitive psychology, but she also has a background in speech language pathology. And this image, it represents language and literacy as a house. It's something that you have to build from the bottom up. And as you can see in this title, the focus here is on oral language competence as a solid foundation in early life. So it means that the ability to do well in school, in your community, in work, it really is founded on the core language skills that you acquire as a child. And that really is based on your oral language experience. Children don't start learning to read until around the preschool years. So around ages 0 to 5, immediately from birth, or even before birth, when the child is in utero and is listening to everything, all of that oral language experience is creating the foundation to be able to do the kinds of things that you can see here. Some of these terms may be familiar, especially if you're in language arts or in special education. We know that children need to be able to have phonemic awareness, to understand the sounds of their language. They need to build their vocabulary. They need to decode something that's printed and turn it into something that can be recognized as a word. They need to learn about morphology and word meanings. They have to become fluent in their speech. All of these things on the instructional side is also paralleled by the things that we need as caregivers and as family members. We need to teach children to value human capital and social capital. We need to help them understand what is appropriate when you're speaking to an elder versus when you're speaking to a friend your same age. We need to help them learn how to use the honorific language correctly. All of these things all come together. But these pillars, these posts that hold the house together, it really is built on oral language experience. But take a look right below that. Oral language experience as a cement foundation, it has to be founded on a solid ground of social and emotional context for language use. This means that in order for a child to truly learn how to learn their sounds, their words, their sentences, and they're learning it, of course, we all know this, the first teachers are the family, the caregivers, the mother, father, elders, siblings, the clan, the family, all of us, we are the first teachers of our children. In order for a child to really learn all of these things about language, they must be socially and emotionally grounded. They must have a strong social emotional well-being. And I think the same thing applies to geoliteracy. A child or an adult, any learner, really needs to be standing on solid ground. They have to have good social and emotional well-being in order to really understand what geoliteracy means. I can think about it in a couple of ways. You can probably try to teach someone about geoliteracy, like let's pretend it's your own child or someone of your younger generation. But if the child is seeing that information as if it were facts, then probably the words that they're going to hear are probably going to be learned as facts, or maybe more likely it's going to go in one ear, right, and out the other, depending on the kid. I think the key part is not about the child's mind, but about the child's heart and spirit. If the child's heart and spirit is not in the right mode for learning about why this geoliteracy is important, they're probably not going to hold on to it, and they're probably not going to grow in what is being taught to them. I can honestly say that I've learned first on that geoliteracy is a great example of holistic learning. Geoliteracy is not about random facts that you memorize. It's not about reciting chants just because you have to. It's not about traveling to different places so that you can compare and contrast with your own homeland. Geoliteracy isn't about those items in isolation. It's about making the connections. And geoliteracy, I think we all know this, it really is rooted in our human connection to the world. It's that human connection. And I think all of us have found connection to this world around us in many different ways. It can be through our spirituality or religion. It can be through our ancestry. It can be through cultural tradition. It can be the sheer memories that we have of a place. It can be through our art that we choose, that we use to express or to interpret our place. It can be the memories of our grandparents or the stories that they tell about a place. All of those are ways that we are connecting to our world. And I think that's the key central piece of geoliteracy. So I really do think, and this week is a great example, I think we need to continue sharing what our journeys are. However we connect to the world in whatever way, we need to share with each other how we do it so that we learn how to strengthen our connections to each other and to our world, and we can learn how to teach it to the next generations. Maybe we realize that these young generations have a connection through art or through poetry or through spirituality or through emotion or through something else, through creativity or competition. Maybe there's something about that we can tap into to help geoliteracy again have a solid ground. Stop my screen share over here. Okay, here we go. And I really think that something that's kind of exciting about geoliteracy is, especially right now, and I'll be honest, I didn't think about this until maybe I think earlier today. I'm grateful that Corinne and others have helped me kind of brainstorm what to share out during this keynote. But this is something that's, I think, I would really like to learn from others what you think about this as well. When we first thought about this project, GEM, I'll be honest, I thought about it as this one-way direction from print literacy as a given and taking that as a metaphor toward geoliteracy. So it was saying geoliteracy is this abstract concept. How can we use print literacy as a way to understand geoliteracy? I think, and I hope others have realized this too, I don't think it has to be one way. I think it has to go both ways. So how can we take what we learn from geoliteracy, our connection to the earth and to the land and water and sky, how do we take that knowledge and how do we make that apply to how we teach and learn print literacy, especially in the school, but also in the home? So how do we take what we know about our world and help us understand how to teach better or how to learn to read better? I think there are a few ways that we can probably like tap into that idea. One is, or there are two. One is the idea of a harvest. So in geoliteracy, I've really gotten the appreciation of what harvesting means. Harvesting, and we all know harvesting applies to many things. It's not just the plants, but it can also apply to our fisheries, the agriculture of our waters, such as fisheries, or even harvesting the sky. So rain catchments. If you've lived in a place where you depend on rain catchment for your fresh water, you know exactly what that is. And I think that what I've learned the most about harvesting in a geoliteracy context is that sharing the fruits of our labors, and when we share across our networks with our families, our clans, our communities, we are truly seeing how our geoliteracy efforts lead into benefits that affect everyone positively. If you cultivate your land a certain way, it leads to a good harvest, then you are improving the health of the people whom you love. I mean, that's, for me, that's like one of the most straightforward examples that I can think of. But maybe a way of taking that idea of harvesting, how could we make that apply in reading or writing? So for example, how can we help students learn that what you read, when you read a book, or when you write, like if you write in a journal, you're not doing it in isolation, but you're doing it as part of a network of sharing out ideas. When you write something, you're going to share out your ideas to other people. Or when you read something, you're adding to your understanding of a network of ideas from other people. So I challenged that the idea of a network, it doesn't have to come from reading, and that applies to harvesting. Let's make it the other way around. How can we take what we learn about harvesting and improve the way that we talk about reading and writing with our students? There are so many more, but let me just go back to the image one more time, just to give us one more example, and then I'll wrap up here. So one more time, thumbs up. Can you all see the image? Thank you. Yeah, I'll put the links in the chat box also. So take a look. There's a version of this which is black and white, but I found a color version, which is really nice. Take a look at this very bottom image, right? Or this part, it says solid ground, right? So I'd like to point out that in this image, Pamela Snow is using a metaphor of a house to talk about building the foundation for success in life, and it's based on language, but language is based on social and emotional well-being. Maybe she didn't realize that in this image, there already is a geoliteracy example right away. So I'll ask the question, what geoliteracy skills that you have can allow you to understand what solid ground means? And I think, especially in our places, solid ground really depends on where you are. If you're in a coral atoll, solid ground probably means something very different than if you are in the high island mountains of places like Puente or American Samoa. So solid ground means something different based on your place. Solid ground, it probably doesn't mean just the density of soil, right? It can also mean probably soil fertility. We know that ground is going to resist erosion when it's got a healthy root system, right? If you got a lot of grasses and shrubs there. We also know that there are specific agricultural practices that help ground stay together and resist erosion. And I'm sure many of us already know, hopefully through some soil experiments that we've done with our students, we know that when soil is high in organic matter, that residue at the top layer of the soil, it helps create more surface area for water to be absorbed. And that helps resist erosion. And again, if you don't have erosion, you're more likely to have solid ground. So I'm thinking that, I don't know, I'd like to ask this person one day, did Pamela Snow have in mind her own geoliteracy experiences to help her realize that green grass is probably one of the best visual metaphors she could use to talk about solid ground, because green grass is probably a sign of a very healthy root system that can resist erosion. So I'd like to challenge us all to take what you're learning in geoliteracy, take what you learn, take those seeds of ideas, harvest them, and sow them in, and scatter them and sow them in how you approach literacy, numeracy, and oralcy with your children, with your students, with your colleagues. I really think that there's some amazing things that we can do when we sort of flip the grid and we focus on how geoliteracy can improve education and help us understand education better, especially reading and writing. I think I've been talking for a really long time here, so I'm gonna just close out by just saying a huge thank you again to everyone. I'm looking forward to seeing how we weave together our ideas and experiences and our histories of GEM together in these next few days, and in the time that we have onward beyond the end of year 5. So again, from here in Norfolk, Virginia, maraming salamat sa inyong lahat. Thank you very much, everyone.
Can you hear us clapping? Thanks, Emerson. Okay, so I want to encourage, if you guys have questions, drop them in the chat. You can send them out to everyone or just to Hendrik. Emerson, thank you for thinking so deeply about geoliteracy and taking us on that journey with you. You know, you've been away from GEM sort of for a little while, although I keep trying to like drag you back in, and you're here now, so
I'm happy to be back, of course.
Yeah, so I'm glad that you were able to share that deeper connection that you're able to make as part of, you know, your part in kicking off the program, and then kind of being with us on this journey, how your ideas of geoliteracy have changed, and you're able to make that bridge to how language literacy works and influences geoliteracy and the other way around. I really appreciate that. And when you know, I don't know for others how that was feeling, but for me, when you had gone back, you had circled back to that picture and gave that example of solid ground under the house, I was like, yes, I get it. Those are really good examples. Thank you. I have a question for you. There's a question from the audience.
Absolutely.
Okay, ready? All right, so Emerson, could you please reflect on what we might call the political dimension of geoliteracy? We've seen over recent years the development of indigenous movements to protect the land, such as the Protect Ridian movement in Guam and the Protect Mauna Kea movement in Hawaii. When local places are threatened by larger political forces or even by global forces like climate change, how do we teach local kids to read the political dimensions of their home place?
Yeah, thank you, Corinne, and thank you to whomever provided that question. Awesome question. And I'll be the first to say also, I definitely would like this to be a conversation too. So for those also who want to share out, please do. On the political side, there were actually two trains of thoughts that I had. One goes back to way back when, at the very beginning of the development of GEM, as to why geoliteracy was so important as a concept to hold on to, and to, to explain to others, such as the NSF, why this is a worthwhile concept and why it has a parallel to things like data literacy, health literacy, financial literacy. And I think when we were going, well, for me, when I was going down that thread, it was very clear that in those conversations of other kinds of literacies in which the ability to critically read and write and navigate those worlds, especially around healthcare, justice, food security, and it all has direct connections to indigenous rights, absolutely. When we were learning about that, it struck me that there was a, sometimes it was under the radar, but sometimes you could see it overtly written or expressed. The continual idea of deficits. There's always a deficit of the people who need the literacy. You need to become data literate because you don't know enough about your data. You need to be health literate because you don't know how to navigate the healthcare system. There's this deficit that's always there. And even though I don't necessarily, or back then I didn't position it as a political statement, I think it can be reflected in that way. Because geoliteracy, we wanted to help people realize that geoliteracy was a clear example in which people throughout the FAS are clearly geoliterate already. This is not about deficits. This is about celebrating the assets and building upon them. And I think that was important too, to show that in a world in which, and unfortunate as it is, like we all seen it and we've all heard it, the idea that especially in places like the FAS, it's about not enough or the lack or the deficit. And really, I honestly did felt when we were putting this proposal together back then that this was a great way of helping people have the ability to clearly show to others, especially people who are outside of the region, clearly show, look at us, look at what we already know how to do. We've already been doing this. We already have the skills and the expertise. We have this existing strong foundation. We're not in a deficit. We already have these strengths, so we build upon them. So I think that when it comes to the ability to address the political climate, for me, I think that's the strongest thread that I can relate to. That especially in education, especially for young people, to be in places where the deficits discussion happens over and over again in formal and informal education. You don't know enough. You're not doing it right. You're not doing what the previous generation did. That absolutely weighs down on a younger generation. So I think for young people to realize that your ability to climb a coconut tree is not, it's not something that you just throw away, or it's not just something that you put aside as like, oh, that's a nice thing to do. No, your ability to climb a coconut tree and to harvest and to chop the footsteps, the footholds the right way, and to read whether or not that tree has the right kind of coconut you need for the feast versus that tree doesn't. If you can do that and you're 7 years old and you're teaching a 20-year-old Peace Corps volunteer, that's the way to do it. I will be the first one to say that you by far have exceeded in life than I have. And we want people to realize that is a statement. That is a statement of who you are and what you have. So for me, that's the biggest connection, that whatever the political climates can be, that the underlying thread of asset versus deficit is a piece that I think geoliteracy can help in terms of realizing that you have assets, you have so many assets and you have so many strengths, and it truly is a blessing. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's essential. It's critical for, in particular, Indigenous communities um, to embrace the geoliteracy, the geoliterate skills that are passed down through our families, through our educators, and not to shy away from that political statement. If you are in a space, and we're all in a space where it's a political statement to exist as an Indigenous person, and to value your community's ways of thinking and knowing. Yeah, it's critical for us to do that, to take up the space, to take back our places in a lot of ways. All right. I think that might be the end of our questions for now. You can, for the audience, definitely feel free to continue to ask questions if you have more. If Emerson can stay with us for the rest of our time together, it's late for him, but yeah, thanks for hanging out. All right, I'm gonna hand it back to our MCs. Thanks, Emerson.
Thank you, Emerson. Just before, I'd like to bring up a question from one of the audience. The question is, what changes have you really found to easily come out from the different tribes that you lived in that area of study? Okay, I'll repeat. What changes have you really found to easily come out from the different tribes that live in that area of study? Because you said within 5 years, you were able to see the changes.
Sure. Yeah, if I can, I'll try to restate the question to see if I caught it. The changes regarding what the Indigenous communities have learned, or what I have seen. Because my caveat is that I've only been with the project for 1 year, technically, the first year. People like Corinne and the ISLET members have been with the project much longer. So any significant differences between geoliteracy and cultural literacy? Is that the same question or a different question? Okay, that's a different question. All right, I'll go back to the first one. Ishiwata, can you rephrase one more time?
All right, I'm going to give it to Ms. Masi, who wrote the question herself, and can you read it? Speak today.
Sorry, sir. After 5 years, you've just stated that you were able to see changes. And it would be changes on all the areas of study that you had gone through. My question is, what changes, which of those changes really did you really find to come out easily from the different tribes that live in that particular area? So there were people of multi-tribes, there were a lot of tribes there. Which change really came out of the different tribes that you had studied, that you had gone out to see?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I want to clarify, when you say tribe, do you mean the tribes of Virginia that I mentioned?
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay, well, I'll be fair. I'll give a caveat here. Our work with GEM was only focusing on the regions of the freely associated states, Palau, FSM, and RMI. It actually would be a really amazing opportunity, right, to learn from the Native communities throughout places like the continental US as to how they talk about geoliteracy. So my short answer is I don't know, because I never had the conversation with them. But I will say that in my ability to have been able to, for example, attend powwows from the Nansemond tribe, or to talk in person and to observe and take a part of place-based cultural activities with the Mattaponi tribe to my northwest. For them, so I can't talk about this in terms of change, but I will just talk about it in terms of what I saw. For them, their environment is their world, right? It's not about talking about the river and the materials from the river or the place where you perform your powwow as separate. It didn't have to be like you talk about it as a different thing or you have to acknowledge it as a separate thing. It's just interwoven into how you just know this is where you get your material to weave, or this is how the river where the powwow is happening is the same river of the place name of the tribe, and it's just continuously interwoven, I would say. I think that's the best metaphor that I can use. I can reflect that in I can reflect that for me, it didn't jump out at me, but it just kind of reinforced to me that for many people around the world, geoliteracy doesn't have to be highlighted, because it's such a part of what you're already doing, such as gardening, or when you walk between buildings and you know that the wind is going to blow faster from one place to the other. All of that is embedded in daily life. And I think that's one of the clearest examples I can see of how being a part of geoliteracy in the Pacific for so long, and then just seeing what geoliteracy is for everyone else, it just solidifies the fact that geoliteracy is it's a part of human living, I would say. Yeah. So again, to your question, I can't remark on anything about changes, but I'm glad to have been able to have seen cross-cultural examples that really solidify my understanding of geoliteracy. All right. Ishiwata, I hope I answered the question. If it's okay, I'll move on to this other question in the chat box. Any significant differences between geoliteracy and cultural literacy? I think that in principle, there don't have to be any differences. I think that geoliteracy, we were clearly trying to draw upon different parts about the connection of the world and learning, but also culture and identity and place. And I think for the purposes, let's say, for example, like if you wanted to be able to focus on being culturally literate, then you could consider, for example, geoliteracy as a part of that. Maybe it's like a subpart, or maybe even like a Venn diagram, I would say, because it's very clear that your interaction with the world around you is a part of your culture and who you are. I could even argue the other way around, that geoliteracy could be like a bigger umbrella, and being culturally literate is a piece of that, because geoliteracy is about your place. And we all know the word place does not mean environmental location by itself. Place means your people, your stories, your communities, your languages, your ecology. That is place as well. So I hope that's not too hard of an answer, but I could argue either way around, and it would be a legitimate answer. Good questions. Any more?
Okay,
Marilyn, I'm going to read out loud. Yeah. Or did you want to?
No,
Marilyn?
go ahead, because
yes.
you've got a couple more questions, so you go for it.
No, Marilyn, I'm grateful. And for those who don't know, Marilyn Lowe is here joining us, and Marilyn was one of the former PIs for the Pacific Islands Climate Education Partnership, and I have to give my props. Marilyn was the one to bring me in, to loop me in into thinking about geoliteracy so many years ago. So thank you, Marilyn. I'll just read this out loud. Here's to a move to a more holistic approach to learning and teaching. Current schooling teaches us to take things apart, to dissect, rather than to understand the interconnections. Print literacy is a good example, absolutely. Rather than being about meaning making, it tends to focus on the pieces of language. You're absolutely right, Marilyn. In language literacy research, and especially about literacy disorders, there is that piecemeal approach. You're trying to figure out the problem. Is it at a level of sounds, morphology, words, meaning? But to be fair, those people are also acknowledging that you can't, even though you can look at it that way, there has to be a holistic approach when you have to wrap it all around together. But yeah, we see this in STEM. We see this in formal education in many ways. This dissecting as opposed to dissecting plus bringing back together. I think that could be a key piece. Thank you, Marilyn. Okay, we've got we got, I guess, Corinne, you wanted to field
You've
them?
got a
Thank you.
couple more questions.
Yeah, let's go
now.
for it.
Okay. Oh, let me, I'll read one, and then I think Ishiwata has a question, and there's a question from Chuk and Punpei. So you got a few, but I'll read one in the chat. So the reality of today, even in the remote Mortlock Islands, the indigenous knowledge and skills are perhaps to our younger folks a way of the past. Climbing a coconut might not yield favorable cash income to purchase desired modern goods and services. How do we add more value to our ways?
Oh, I hear that example, and my brain, my mind goes to Mongon local are utenten mongo. So those words are in Mortlockese, and Mongon local is, as I'm sure all of you can imagine, it's local food, which encompasses all of the different kinds of local food that you can imagine. And in a place like in the outer islands, I mean, taro and arrowroot and breadfruit and bananas and dryland taro, this is all some of the best local food that you can imagine, right? And then I remember this one time when we were at a table and we were looking at, well, this wasn't me, actually, I take it back. This was my host mother telling me a story of one of her younger children who was in my generational cohort. He was born in the 80s and I was born in the 80s. He was looking at a table that's full of local food. And he asked, where's the real food? And do you all know what real food was to him? Rice. He was looking for rice. He was not looking for taro or breadfruit or bananas. Utenten mongo is true food. Real food for him is rice. So how did that happen? I can't help but I've gone through those conversations with my host parents and other elders, even as early as children growing up in the 80s into the 90s. There was a shift in food. There was food value or cachet that was devoted to imported food that was easy to cook. It probably has a different taste that may be more appealing. There probably is cachet, right? If you have spam, it probably says something about your social economic status, right? It's a truth of the reality. Whereas, food like the food that you have to work hard at to get and to put on your table, it's not valued the same way. And truly, it's an either or for them. They don't want to eat local food. They want to eat rice. So I couldn't help but try to have these conversations. Where did this happen? Where did this start? How did this happen? Truly, I don't think there's. So I myself I'm far from being the one to provide an answer. This is not a question that I can answer. I think this is a great example of the conversation that we need to have with ourselves. It's the hard conversations as to why the young generation are feeling this way and why the elder generation are also feeling that way. I'm grateful that there are opportunities that I've seen in places like in Pohnpei where mobile team conversations, for those who may know about them, mobile team conversations allow different genders and generations to talk separately and then come back together as a group to talk about social issues with each other. So I think that's probably the key piece. The more that we talk with each other to understand what's going on, we can figure it out. Because I don't think it's as simple as telling a child, value your taro and don't value your rice anymore. It can't happen that way. It really has to happen with continuing conversation. And that's hard too. It's hard when we have conversations with young generations who don't want to listen, or we have conversations with elders who don't want to talk about it. It's our reality, but I don't think we have to, I don't think we can stop talking about it or with each other in order to try to find something that would truly be relevant for our local places. Yeah, I don't think I gave a great answer, but that's the best that I can do.
Okay, thanks, Emerson. There's I'm gonna give it over to Chuk. I think Dr. Cholome wanted to add.
Mama Mar, you're on.
Yeah, just a comment from the group. Emerson.
Thank you very much, Dr.
Musalam
You're
Marwan mute
muted.
Safel.
Thank you again, Dr. Emerson. Because you were talking about food, I like to share something that took place in CHUT during my high school year in the 70s. The boys would say, "Kunlula rice, kunluto apple." When they see a girl from the back, they feel she's pretty, so they say she's rice. But when she turns around, she's not really pretty, so they said she's apple. That's our Chuki's preserved breadfruit. But that's something that our generation need to learn more about, valuing our own food and about who we are as Chukis. So just something I like to add to what you said about food. But thank you very much for your very clear and impressive talk. And there's something that is, I mean, significant that I also like to say. When you talk about solid foundation and you use the metaphor as a house, because that's something in this geo-literacy process, the importance of our young generation to be rooted and also have a very solid foundation of our knowledge or our indigenous knowledge. Thank you for that very beautiful metaphor of a strong foundation. Ipatirong ini Chanchuk, paltirong ini kids. I like to add something I hear, si kana rap where sonamag. The importance of having a solid foundation in our Sierra Sonamag. Thank you again.
Oh, Kliso Shapur Mar, Kliso.
Yeah, palang mute eh.
Do we have, thank you, Dr. Mar. Do we have a comment from the marshals?
Yeah, just a comment from one member of the group. That is, I'm glad to hear from you that one of the elements that could be used to tackle geoliteracy is spiritual. The students need to use a holistic approach to meet the need that is here. Thank you, Emerson.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's a great feedback point. I'll just add something really quickly. If you haven't had a chance to start reading Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer, it's a a great text. I'm still working through it, and it's a great example of how she, as a Native American botanist, is combining her worlds of being a Native American, but also being a trained scientist, but also being a mother and a storyteller. And she talks about weaving three, when she's braiding, in particular braiding sweetgrass, you've got three strands that you braid together. She talks about that. And I appreciate that comment, Ishiwata, from your group, because there are elements of how we connect to the world, which, and I'll go back to that idea of spirituality. There are moments in which you can just be by yourself, right? In the garden, on the beach, standing even in the city and looking up at the sky. And you have moments in which you have a connection, right, to this world around you. And it wasn't accompanied by protocol. It wasn't accompanied by tradition or chant or prayer. You weren't thinking of a particular deity or an ancestor. You were just there with the world. And moments like that, that is absolutely a moment of spirituality that happens all the time, again, in daily life. And I think geoliteracy has to wholly embrace that as the key part. This combination of STEM plus indigenous knowledge, it might be missing some pieces, and it has to include things like family and our spirits and our connections to each other in that realm and in that world. And we need more people to join the conversation to help us understand how to make those connections to each other.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Emerson. That is very beautiful. I don't know if I should be jealous more that you can speak the language of my family, especially my father who's from the Mortlogs, and you speak fluently better than me. But
no, Kathy, I'm Musala. I don't mean to interrupt, but I have to acknowledge there are some of my teachers literally right here. Gusto, Yen, Kathy, Mar, Diana, Paulina, Annie Monson. If you've taught me Mortlockies before, this is the fruit of your labor. I am continuously
we're
a student.
very happy. Yeah, it's a blessing that you can speak and understand us in the language. And it's very this is very appropriate for today's series. And it reminds me of how the Chuukese saying, or when they start opening up a meeting, they said tiro rang, tiro pun, tiro set, tiro aramas. All these things is to honor heaven, sky, ocean, people, land. And this is really related to geoliteracy learning in this series. So thank you very much. Just to let you know that these presentations today are part of the GEM kickoff meetings. And if you are a current ISLET member or were an ISLET member before, you probably participated in a kickoff meeting before. And this may feel familiar to you, many of you. So if so, we hope that you can reflect on the experiences with GEM. But if you are not, or if you have not been part of an ISLET, welcome to this GEM. Consider that this is your kickoff meeting. You are part of the GEM now. Yeah, yes.
Next, sorry. Okay, next we will introduce ourselves and our places. I would like to start with an introduction for Kanita and Paulina. Kanita Kani, Carolyn Rilomato Nakamura, was born on Jalwit, Marshall Islands, where she was raised in a multilingual family of Marshallese, Pohnpeian, Pashtun, and English educators. She graduated from the Marshall Islands High School in Majuro, and is mother a daughter and 2 young sons. Connie was hired by PREL to be part of the Pacific Islands Climate Education Partnership, PCEP, assisting with teachers trainings and workshops on newly developed educational resources. In 2017, she became one of the module managers for the geoliteracy education in Micronesia, also known as GEM project, working alongside educators, community elders, youths, and students to research and create products that try to answer the question, how do we read the skies, the lands, and the waters? And how do we learn from those texts in order to make decisions that positively affect ourselves and our communities? Recently, Kanita has been collaborating with Nia Tero and the Pohnpei Department of Education to implement the Indigenous Learning Recovery Project that will inject community elders in schools and add practical local traditional knowledge and skills into the education system. Paulina, Europe, Sandy, and please correct me if I pronounce your name wrong. Okay, is a senior program specialist for multilingual and multicultural learners at PREL, working in Pohnpei and CHUT. She's also a GEM module manager and has been integral to the GEM project since its beginning. Paulina was recently the Deputy Assistant Secretary, Mitigation for the Federated States of Micronesia, FSM, National Department of Environment, Climate Change, and Emergency Management. She was a crew member of the Opulea during the 2007 voyages. She graduated with an MA in linguistics from the University of Hawaii at Manoa. Paulina is a member of the Pollup Atoll community and outer island of CHUT State, FSM. Right, that was Kanita and Paulina's introduction.
Thank you, Ishi. I think this is my cue to introduce the place-based introduction activity. And I'd like to share my screen. Okay, hold on. Where are we?
Okay, you can share now.
Kathy?
You can now share. Yeah.
Wait, I'm sure. This is not it. Sorry. I had the place-based intro open, but I don't know why I can't find it. Okay.
Polly, are you looking for the one with the map? Where are you from map?
No. My
Oh, you have a different one.
drawing, I had that open,
Oh,
but I
okay.
don't know why I can't find it. But anyway, let's not even go there because it's gonna take up time.
I'll find
Yeah.
it for you. You keep going.
Sorry. Stop sharing.
Yeah, okay.
So I'll just go ahead and introduce myself. I had a drawing that I use for place-based introduction. So in this activity, place-based introduction is where we ask participants or people who are involved with GEM to introduce themselves through their significant place or a place that represents who they are. So for me, I had in my drawing, I had like a picture of my island, Pollup, So whenever I introduce myself or when somebody asks where I'm from, that's usually the first thing that comes to mind, that I'm from Polap. And if the listener or the person who asks where I'm from is from somewhere else that is not familiar with Micronesia, then I would expand upon that, like where Polap is located in relation to CHUT state or the Federated States of Micronesia, and even going out to explain where FSM is located in terms of the Pacific, entire Pacific. So that's, and in this drawing of Polap, I usually refer to a story or a history that is very significant to people from our island, that tells the, and we're very proud of, that tells of the origin of navigation. And so the name, another name for Polap is called Fanato. And so that's, that was my, in my drawing, and I'm sorry that I cannot share it today. So that's who I am. And now I'm going to open the floor up to Connie or someone who wants to introduce themselves also using the place-based introduction.
Come on, man.
Kanita, were you going to introduce yourself?
You put my picture, I put our pictures in the chat box. Can you guys put our pictures up?
Okay, hang on. Sorry, it's not showing your picture.
Oh, I sent it to Corin.
Let's try again. Oh,
I'm
there.
dropping it in the chat box
Okay.
for the rest of the group.
Okay, Paulie's is in there too.
Okay.
That I sent to Corin. Okay, thank you, Hendrik. Okay, so Kasalinya Manko again, Yim Yahweh. I was born on Jalowit. So this drawing on the right side of my photo is representing Jalowit, a tiny, small island. And my mom and my grandma on my dad's side are from FSM. So this island on the left side with the representing the big islands of Coastrai and Pohnpei. My last name, Rilometo, is actually a Marshallese word that means people of the ocean. So that's why the ocean is also drawn onto this picture. And what we mean by our place-based intro, like Paulie already shared with everyone, it's just a really quick way of trying to introduce yourself based on who you are and where you are from. Huh? So the drawing is a depiction of that. Born on Jaloid, ancestry from the big islands of Pohnpei and Coastrai with mountains. And that also my name means people of the ocean. Okay? And that's me. So are we giving them time to do this activity folks. Corin.
Yeah, so we found Paulina's picture, and Kanita and Paulina, we have that map, the Poll Everywhere map, if we wanted to do that. Andrew, can you show Paulina's picture just so others can see it? And Paulina, do feel free. I know you explained it, but if there's anything where you wanted to add.
Corinne, come again. What were you saying?
We're just putting up your picture. So is there anything more you wanted to add?
I think I've said it all, but just to kind of explain what the picture is, a very elementary drawing. So the thing on the top left, that's a bird. It's called kuling in our language. And if I'm not mistaken, that's the sandpiper bird. And then that's at the top is Fanatok, that's the name of Polap, and Fana is land or island, and then Top is kind of unclear or invisible. And below that, that is supposed to be like drawing of the Polap Island, coconut trees, and my house, which is my house where I grew up, located on the west side of the island.
Ooh, I love that drawing. Okay, so we do have a map. Andrew, can you put up the map? So we won't have everyone show their own place-based drawings because yes, some of us don't have those kind of artistic skills, but we do want to know where you're from. So there is a poll everywhere. And can you put it in present mode? I'm gonna drop in the link. And we want to know where you're from. So you go into this link in the chat. It should allow you to drop a link or drop a little location marker. Where are you from? And it's up to you if you want to put where you're originally from or where you identify as your place or where you're calling in from. And if you're joining us from outside of the Pacific region, sorry, your map's really tiny. For everyone else, we made the map pretty large for the Pacific region.
Wait. Once alone, check out respond.
Corinne, can we zoom in on the map? So you see our tiny islands? Ito nga ni Warimene. Wala. Ika. Aten. Funny ni. Ikane. Wait, where are we? I need to.
You may have to look closely on our map, but you can start to see where people are from. Wow, there's somebody all the way from the Cook Islands. Awesome. If you can see on the screen. I think for some of our places, maybe it's taking a minute to load.
Okie dokie. Yak chain. So is there a way to zoom?
No, you just gotta guess.
Oh,
Yeah, you want to share this small?
so downsides of being from places that are just dots on the map. Ah, okay. Talikur mo, Bombay, right? Okay. Wait, as I got that. Yeah, it's taking a long time to load.
It's slow on your guys' side too?
Yeah. Okay, here,
Alright.
finally.
Well, if we can leave it activated too. We can leave it
There.
out there, so I see it.
You
I
see
saw
it?
pop up. Yeah.
Right.
Yay. Ah, there's another one that landed. It's fun.
Okay.
Nice. Paulina and Kanita, do you guys want to talk a little bit more about maybe some of the conversations you had during these place-based introductions? Since you guys were really the ones guiding this, you guys were the guardians of these activities.
I don't know how this map works.
Oh, sorry.
Tricks, so I won't even, we pointed to where we're located and it's asking us to do something else. So we're not even gonna go there.
We'll leave
But
it.
something that I remember from the kickoff workshops, and Connie, you can add to that, is you know, when you ask people to introduce themselves through a significant place, it's usually it's either the house or the island or even things like gardens, areas that are important to the participants. So those were some things that were common to see among participants when they introduce themselves. And I remember the conversation about, you know, when people don't know about your location, and it's like that, you start small and then you expand out to areas that people will be familiar with. And of course, yeah, the Pacific is a very large area to say, oh, we're from this. So we use places like Hawaii or the Philippines or Japan to kind of explain our location, where FSM or the states are. Connie, if you have something to add.
Yeah, a lot of people drew and shared about themselves through their clans. And this is something that we found out in during a previous project, that a lot of the young students did not know their clans, and some of the teachers didn't know their clans. So it became very important to ask people to draw something that can explain themselves about where they're from. Think of something that you identify, that means something to you, and that also tells us about who you are and where you are from. So when students and the youth that know their clans and know who they're associated with, they would start out with just the drawing of the totem for that particular clan. And they take pride in the fact that they've learned. I did not know the totem for my clan until I moved to Pohnpei. I'm already a mother of 3, and I didn't know what the animal was associated with the clan. I just knew the name for it, and it was during some of these activities of asking students to share through the drawings that I learned what it is for my clan. Did anybody else want to introduce?
Thank you, Connie. Can I give this time to someone in my group? Maybe the northernmost island in the Marshall Islands, Medjit.
Yeah.
Right, I'm Palo Pijana. Can you all see the photo clearly?
Move up. Lift it up. There you go. There. Good.
Tirik. Okay.
Okay, this is my island. This is where I'm from. Medjit Island, single island in the Marshall Island, and it's probably the highest island in the country. And as you can see, that in the middle is it's a small lake inside. So it's really a unique and a different place in the Marshall Island.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So this is the lake, eh? The freshwater lake. And then this is the island of Medjit. Okay? It's a single island. And it's a rock island that is pretty high. You'd have to look up, you know, because we're so used to standing on water and look at the surface of the island. But when you go to Medjit, you know, you kind of climb up.
Yeah. And that's why they call people from the island Medjit Lulingat. It means the
eyebrows are high.
Eyebrows is high. Because you look up to the people.
Yeah. So in order to go to Medjit, you need to look up. And they have an old saying that it's called Medjid Lolinet, or the Medjid people's eyebrows are, are higher than other neighboring island peoples. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Mami Ememenya? Cliff? Cliff kang kasaleta, place-based introduction.
Well, okay. Kailangan.
Agis kahit inom kamaran.
Okay, there. Okay, here's mine. You can see,
Agis kahit
There you go. Better.
okay,
Pero,
okay, you guys can see this? There.
So Chris, Rock.
Okay, I used, instead of, I used Soques Rock. You can see one of the landmarks for Pompeii and Namato. So just to represent Pompeii. And then there's an island here, that's Pinglab, east of Pompeii. So that's where I'm from. So I combined the two. I'm living on Pompeii, and then I was from Seattle or Pinglab, right there. So this just to introduce myself, using the play space. So thank you.
Kailangan, Cliff. Hi, Joy. Someone in Kushai wants to share.
Manuel, we're actually saving ours to our very special day on Thursday. So yeah, we're thinking of saving it for Thursday, for the play space and also the live moment.
Okay.
Thank you.
Joy.
Yes, a lot of the islets are saving their introductions till their islet presentations. So it's fine. Anyone else? Someone else from Medero?
Yes. You should face that way.
To see that.
Yeah, that's
Okay, here we have a place from the Fiji Islands. You will see that it's quite mountainous. There are trees, thick forest up in the mountains. And then that is where we have the source from the river. The river flows right down to, we have the longest river there. And then it goes right down to the sea. And my village is down at the sea. So I am a Delta girl. And across the river, we have the largest bridge that is crossing the river, which has a town on the other side of the river. The river flows right out to the sea, and we have the biggest city at the mouth of the river. So that is just a simple picture of the high up in the mountains because you have a lot of trees and that is where we have the clouds there and it's beginning to rain. We have a lot of rain in our area. That is the geography of this particular place out from Fiji. Thank you.
And you're from Rewa.
I'm from Rewa. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Marcy. Thank you.
Okay. So again, a lot of the islets are saving their introductions till their days to introduce and share their presentations. So if no one else, we're going to take a 5-minute break so everyone can get up, stretch, get some coffee, something, and we'll start 5 minutes, right, Corn?
Yep,
Yes,
Hendrik's setting a
5
timer
minutes.
for us.
Okay,
We'll see you
thanks,
guys
Hendrik.
at 5.
Okay.
Hey, welcome back. Welcome back. Thank you, Paulina and Kanita. And thank you to those that introducing yourselves and your places. Next, we will be talking with our GEM staff about the project's guiding questions. So we welcome back Corinne, who will be moderating the panel discussion. Miss Corinne?
Okay, so for this part, so GEM staff, if you're able to come up to the microphone, we'll be talking, this is our panel piece, yeah, so we'll be talking about our guiding questions. So you've heard the guiding question quite a bit already, and Hendrik, can you bring up the slide? So you'll hear it again. So our guiding question for GEM is, how do we read the skies, the land, and the waters? And how do we learn from those texts in order to make decisions that positively affect ourselves and our communities? So in our ISLET meetings, in those kickoff meetings in years 1 and 2, Kanita and Paulina worked with members to think more deeply about this key question and the meaning of the words, and they worked to translate it into the local language. So as our module managers visited each community and started to kick off the ISLET activities, this is one of the conversations that they were having, is really digging into this question. And through those discussions emerged a lot of back and forth about what it means to read and read when we're talking about our places. What are we reading and what are we using to read? So I want to invite our staff up. We have, hopefully Juanita is there, Juanita Lawrence in Pohnpei, along with Kanita Rilameto Nakamura in Pohnpei, Evelyn Joseph and Ishiwata in the Marshalls, Joy Minda, George, Paulina, and Tini. Can you guys all come up? Okay. All right, my friends. Okay, so I think everyone, you can see the slide. We actually had so many translations. There's a second slide. And so on this first slide, we have Marshallese, Bonvan, Chukis, Kushayan. And then on our second slide, we have Yapis and, oh, thank you. Yapis and Ulithi, Palawan, and then there's in English, another set of English questions. And those questions came from that back and forth. That original guiding question, those discussions were so deep that it warranted additional additional questions to help expand our thinking. So for this part, I want to ask, and this is a 1-question panel, so we'll see where this takes us for our group. And while we're talking, I want to encourage those in the audience, you're welcome to ask questions. You're welcome to ask questions in the chat box, and yeah, we'll take some questions from the audience too. So for our staff members, our 1 question, so on the slide, we have our guiding questions and we have our translations. Can you talk a little about the word or the phrase that we're using for read, in quotes, read, in your language? What's that word or phrase that's describing, what's that word or phrase describing when we're talking about reading skies, lands, and waters? Can you talk a little bit about that phrase for reading? And I'm gonna, we'll start off with our elders. So if either Juanita or Evelyn wanna take a go at it first.
And first of all, on behalf of the Pohnpei Group, I extend our deepest spirit of the land, water, and the skies. And to all of you out there who are part of this community of learning. But for the Pohnpeian translation, first of all, I want to acknowledge all of those that contributed to the translation. You know, it was the ISLETs whose members were some old folks, community members, teachers, and us staff. So the way we translated that statement in Pohnpeian goes like this. Yamamanatalkin kasawi o wewe ki magadan pan lang paliyama o paliyesit. O yamamanatal kakatangkin nangijuk pukat nangijuk pen moket kan ni wiyepen kawitata tama kayong mau o konem sabol matal memor pene nan wasan kusanakan. It's a long translation, but I think what we are going to be talking about sharing is the word read. How do we read the skies, the land, and the ocean? The Panapan translation that we use for reading, we put together two terms, kasawi or weweki. The simple, first of all, the simple translation for read in Pohnpeian is watak, watak. And that is just a service, you know, reading, just like reading a book, reading a sign. But in relation to the land, the skies, and the water, you know, we put together two terms, kasawi or weweki. Means to really observe using our senses, our sense of sight, hearing, feeling, all the body senses to try to understand what is it that we are seeing in our land, the water and the skies. So it's a deeper translation for the word read. And it involves, you know, your whole body, your emotions, your thoughts, your feelings. We may be at a place, as an example, on the land where, you know, we don't see anything except the, you know, the physical, the rocks and the land and the soil and trees. But we feel the spirit. We can feel something. And that helps us to, you know, connect to what you know, the land is telling us. So that is the translation that, you know, we all agreed upon, that it isn't so much as reading on the surface, but really kasawi means to really observe deeply using all our senses, our feelings, our emotions, our minds, to try to understand what is it that, you know, we are, that the land, the sky, and the water is communicating to us. And it's a deeper connection of, you know, the body, the mind, and the soul to our land, skies, and waters. Thank you.
Thank you, Anita. How about Evelyn?
오늘은 더 배워보고
She running through the room. Sorry.
Okay, when we work with our teachers, this is the GEM guiding question. So we work with teachers, we work with students. We usually put out this question, and then I think for our students and some of our teachers, we try our best to translate it into Marshallese. And Ishwara is going to help me.
We're all gonna help you.
we're all going to help each other. For the Marshallese translation, we usually put it out like this. Elemenar lale kalimiyak mijato yoneni kap malo aklojat aklo tuan kajin majar cijoba kadu. Elemenar kadu kajojo ran akian ngancibang Bedok melele ko ni kajar bali. Olivia ngaje ije juga. Kajar kamani melele ko ni cibang dan magdikit ilo kalagir kajojo iya. Elemenar lokajin beleriwa riti. Aritana kilokijang, we use the word kadu. Okay, kadu. Kadu lang, kadu. Any reto yon any jadian jilowi lang jet kakalan ko ni ikolak. Isan reactor lukun tija malak ilowe wingi. Nung attendment ko you try to bring it back in our PPL strategies. And I think maybe we've lost some of it, but we encourage teachers. In your communities, there are people who are still experts in some of these areas. Interview them or bring them in as guest speakers into your classrooms, and they can, talk to the kids and, they elaborate on Jedian where we need to Katakan balak. Kalau kau nak orang bayar ni mikir, when malalagak palagir mo kaya inairkan katakan pukarin, katakan aniran cak. Nakadang mancakan endukun lab hijau itu kan ermani. Ini yang ini cianwat geoliteracy komunikasi par enwat ngaji juga kadu cuan nan. How do you teach kadu? Nan nabe orang Indonesia. Imlawin pakai, kita jarbal pakai. Have you ever teach the meaning of pakai? Manrijuran ini. Eno cewek kanan tak ada, expecting them to understand and be able to know what we mean when we use these words. Agar dukun molo, there are deep meanings of many of our local words. Imujani nawala prajarin kaniwa, geoliteracy. The literacy is part of understanding a lot of your place-based identity, where you are from, who you are, even the food you eat, how you cook it. Those are all things that makes us
I guess
unique.
we're all connected. The land, the ocean, the sky. We're connected somehow. We're interdependable on each other.
Interdependent, yep.
So as teachers, how do you observe the skies, land, the ocean to make better decisions in your daily life?
Thank you, Corinne. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you. And when Evelyn, Ishiwata, and Juanito were talking, I'm going back to that visual of the house being built on solid foundation. So that building of geoliteracy with our senses, our emotions, our hearing and feeling, and seeing that whole body, I'm starting to see like pieces of the house being raised. All right, so how about I'm gonna turn it over to others. Maybe Paulina, what are your thoughts?
Corinne, are you calling on Chug or?
Yes, I'm calling
Sure.
on
Sorry,
Chug.
our connection is kind of
Oh,
on
okay,
and off
okay.
today. So
If can
is it Chug now?
Yes, yes.
Okay. And can you share the guiding questions?
Yeah.
The guiding question again with the translations? I think it's my connection. It's kind of unclear, but anyway. Oh man, thinking back to the kickoff workshops, and I remember this guiding question. There were moments where we had to pause, like in all the, like the two, no, not the two, the three workshops we had the team with the 3 teams in CHUT. It was, we had a hard time translating the word read. We were like, what's the right word to translate read? Because like for us, we don't read the skies or the land and the waters. I mean, technically we do, but it seems like the word itself seems so shallow compared to how we say it in the different languages. So for example, the Chug Lagoon translation, which is on the slide, it says, Ifau sunat orufenu at sipueri siaramas. And orufenu, that's like a very deep word which most of the island members at the table had no clue what it was, but the person who introduced it had to explain that that's the term that is being used when you want to observe what's in the skies, the land, or the waters. So it was like a new vocabulary for most of us. And then to simplify it for those of us who don't speak that kind of language or who are not familiar. So the next part to it, that's the simple translation of the guiding question, especially the word read. So it's Ifau sunat awosata sinneri ike isinna fiti usun na berapet feneng word fenu mereset we porangurangunat angagen erisiron nanguna ramas. And notice there are 3 words that are used to explain read. We have awosata, sinneri, and esinafiti. I think that speaks to the fact that it's, you know, for us, it's more than just reading, but it's more than just seeing, but understanding and being able to make decisions on what's seen in those, in the 3 elements. Okay.
Thanks, Polly, and thank you, Chug team. How about from Koshai? I wonder if our Koshai team is.
Now, good afternoon to good evening on our side. So for Kushai, first off, I would also like to, I'm glad that we're coming in like the fourth, because most of the things that the comments or remarks we wanted to kind of elaborate on the kiting question is already been said. So I will only echo the elders' remarks on how the process went in translating the kiting question. So, so first off, you know, the process itself was, you know, we keep on changing or revising the question every year. So we had the similar experiences of understanding the word read, and also trying to use every, you know, Kushayan word that would really make sense of what the idea of the question is trying to relay or portray. So, you know, I remember in one of our community consultation with the elders, the word read itself, one of the elder was saying that we don't have that in our dictionary. It's not even a word in our vocabulary. So, you know, I was having hard time trying to explain it to them of how, you know, the word read should also be, you know, more of looking at things and also trying to understand in a more deeper and understanding way. And that's how we kind of come out to do the translation of the question. And if I may, if I can go back to the question, read out our translation for our prompt question is Mea Yeneno Pinchuan Eno Eko Fogoina Kelimina Sesh Makatlotea Gain Ekashakat Pagayar and Nasunana Mo Lash Ematayash. So if you are very fluent in Kushayan, you would not notice a word that says read. More of like akalemia nasej is like a sign. What is it that reading the skies, the lands, and the water? What are the signs of why are they? You know, it's important to read the skies, to really observe in a deeper way, or in a different at a different angle where you understand the connection between those three texts. So yeah, it wasn't a really smooth process to translate the question, but you know, we find it as an opportunity to really get more information from not just from the elders, and also from our teachers, and even some of the fishermen and the farmers who were part of the highlights in the very first year of our project. So I would say that just that word read gave us a really big, you know, it gives us like not just a day to understand, but it gives us more like going 1 or 2 years just to understand that word. And also, I also like to also acknowledge that because of the question, it really gives us not just the ISLETs, but also our resource people to kind of recognize more of the value of how deeply the land and the water and the skies are connected to each other. All of the things are happening on our land. It's also connected to what is happening in the skies and in our waters. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, and you know, try to recognize that, you know, because of this project, or just this specific question, we were able to kind of come to a consensus that this will be our translation, and this is like more comprehensive to our community to understand what the question is all about. So thank you. I think this is more of what I wanted to share on our part, unless any of you want to say anything. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Joy. Thank you so much for sharing that and really highlighting the struggle that you guys were having. And I think all of our groups were having when thinking about the question and then being asked to, okay, like how do we translate this into a way that holds that same meaning? And you had mentioned too, like making the connection. So reading the signs, but also making connections to what you see in front of you and to what you know has come before. I really appreciate that you had expanded that definition. All right, I'm gonna shoot it over to Teeny.
Hi, thank you, Corinne. Yeah, for the part, the translation, I just did the translation. For like reading the skies, it's just like every other states that mentioned there is no word for reading the sky. When you look at the translation, the part where it says BX, like the BI apostrophe EG, that's read being translated. So that's why there is an FA after that. And then we have the non-fun. So the non-fun is more like you're observing or understanding. Because you cannot say, for like instance in Yappies, you cannot say you read the sky or you read somebody. You have to say that you're understanding the person or you're understanding like how the sky is, like how it's changing, when it's gonna rain. And in connection to that, this is what's gonna take place, like just looking at the sky or the land, like, oh, the land is like there's a big flood, so you cannot do gardening here. Or so I'm gonna read the translation. Buuron ni mabeg fan ng fan lanalang the kind of now mlul. Mlul is the like river. You can say lul. The mlul is like more than one. Rain ng abay, like water and the ocean. Makaburuan ni mafil fan ng fan rock wichigirdi, like understanding others or ancestors or your elders. Ni wat no pa nangongol nga para the filing. Like understanding them and making decisions for ourselves, our community. The reason why I put filing, because filing is like the world, earth itself, because it all connects. Because even if I say the community is connected to other communities, to the water is connecting all of us, and then it connects everybody on earth. That's why I put filing instead of putting like the translation for community. And the second part, buurkan di kadra ng fan, sandal. like our land, like everything on it, the foundation, the trees, the plant, the rocks, even. Ninga yoga ninga dugliye rogon for farwol ni falco perredad bada bikreb nagabuch bada bikreb nagabut andredad nga perredad, like how our doings won't affect others and other living things, or even like rocks and stuff, like whatever that the actions that we're doing is not affecting other people in a bad way. So that's the translation for the second part. Like for me, when I started doing stuff with Jem, working with Jem and the team, I really learned a lot and how things are connected in so many ways. And then I linked it to like things that I learned from my parents, my family, my relatives, the people that I've met ever since I was in Port Bay until here. I realized that every places has things that you can do and you cannot do, or things that you do and it affects others, or the way that you do things, like even gardening, like this whole COVID thing that we did, like lockdown and everything. I got to go back into like community and really do a lot of stuffs in the community and in my place, like gardening and going to taro patches that haven't even been fixed for so many years. And I learned that it's different, like how they did it before. For instance, like how they dug up the places to fix the taro patch. Like now, myself, I cannot even do the things that the elders did before. Like they were like really connected to the land in a way that they worked so hard. Like even I think of myself in their shoes and I'm like, I'm gonna be like breaking my back or something doing it. It's like they use like coconut shells to dig up the taro patch, and it's like they're huge. So I really got to learn a lot, like through this, through working on GEM and connecting it to the people and the community and everybody. And for the Ulysses, the Ulyssian translation, I would have to ask Jen to pitch in, and she'll do the reading of it and then talk a little bit about it.
Okay, I'll take a shot at it. I'm not
Thank you,
the one
Jen.
who did this translation, but it's pretty much understandable. So I'm gonna read it out. It says, Bueva sangal yatsmada irel makasallah nganhit malalang mawolfeli meletet. The first three words, Bueva sangal, is literally like how. So the first sentence is kind of like saying, how can we understand things that we see or have, things that we see in the skies, on the land, and in the waters, the ocean. Madam Nesibukai, Mayulan Makasiawari. What are the things what do we learn from these things that we see? Waharawaman Nesibukola, Menesibufoiri, Boyabutipugits, Wasibuefel, Moyafel, Ramatan Makafeliats. So what do we see? What do we learn from what we see so that we can think of things that we need to do to help ourselves and help the people of our island or islands. Like the other states, the term read is also hard for us to explain in one word or translate. So these things, like they're saying, makasallah ngalihit, things that we see, they're visible in the skies, on the land, and in the seas. Because, you know, all the islands, we have beaches, and we can see both the sky and the water when we're at the beach. So things in the sky and how the water is acting with whatever's going on in the sky. These are things that we see that, oh, there's a storm coming, or, oh, it's gonna rain, or, oh, the water is rough, it's not good to go out fishing right now. Things like that. So that's how usually people on the islands predict what to do, whether they're gonna go to the garden or they're gonna go fishing or not, whether they need to conserve water because they see that the land is getting dried up. Those are like the signs or things, the texts that we see that we need to do things in our community and for ourselves. So I don't know, that's how I understand this. I see Larry Regatal and Don Rubenstein here. Maybe they can also pitch in whatever they want to add to what I just said. Thank you.
Thanks, Jen. I love it. And thank you, Teeny, also for sharing. I do want to call on Larry. I'm hoping that maybe also Don, but Larry can go first. If you'd want to share your knowledge with us.
Hi. Yeah, can you hear me? Sorry.
Yes. Hi, Larry.
Thank you for the opportunity to chime in, and so great to see some familiar people here. I've been also kind of just sitting and listening, see what people or hear what people are saying in as far as these guiding terms to help this geoliteracy program move forward. I take note of the fact that I think all the groups are really having a difficult time trying to translate few words of English into our own, such as read. You know, read is, to me, we're reading, that's a foreign terminology that we've come to kind of also adapt. But I want to share that actually in those long days before, we do precisely that. And in our islands, we have a word, like one word we use is haman, and haman would literally translate into English as to prepare. And that practice allows certain individual to go on the leeward side of the island before dawn or by dawn, and also be at the ocean front by sunset. And what they do is just reading the skies. And likewise, other sacred indigenous forms of knowledge, whether it be a healer or whether it be you know, whatever that they are, builder, they do exactly that. Roman, they're also just preparing. They observe and they then prepare for what's to come. Or, from there it allows the community to work around their schedule in according to the behavior of the elements surrounding them. So there is direct correlation to, I'm sure a lot of you know that when the breadfruits are in abundance and therefore the octopus are out, or when the moon is full day after, therefore the lobsters are out, or a couple days after the full moon, the crabs are out. And so all of these things are geo literacy for Micronesians that have been practiced throughout the islands for generations. Thousands of years, people have read, so to speak, but actually make preparation for their daily drawers in accordance to understanding the behaviors of these elements, whether it be the ocean or the skies, or the skies can tell you when to voyage. It allows you to kind of make those kind of predictions, but go more detail into it, and then you have all those other walks of knowledge that are involved around this geoliteracy, or understanding the skies, the ocean, and the land. So I'm with everybody in having a little bit of a challenge to translate from the English version of these guiding words into ours. And I think it goes back to what Dr. Emerson was saying earlier. Perhaps maybe we've had these things for a while. Maybe we could translate them into the English version, of allowing the English to take what we know and what we've been practicing. Thank you.
So team, I think there's a challenge for us right there, yeah? In our last year and a half, 2 years together. Yeah, can we take it back? Can we revisit? And you guys have been continuing to revisit these questions. How do we say it now? It's been 5 years. How would we phrase, because this question was drafted, right, in year one, kind of revisited along the lines in year one, but now it's been 5 years. So maybe how would we say it again? Larry, might have to bring you back for that one. All right. Thank you guys so much for this discussion. I'm thankful that you've been open to being on this journey of continuing to dive into this question, revisiting and constantly revisiting the question. Before I hand it over, Don, did you want to say anything? Did you want to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that we can also perhaps see in place names a concept of reading. And this is something I learned from Robert Underwood, who's a real master of the Chamorro language, that the etymology of the word Mangilao, which is where our university is located, literally means to look out over the ocean. And this was a place where Chamorro fishermen positioned themselves to read what was the incoming weather and what to expect in the next few days. And I think it's particularly appropriate that our university is in Mangilao, because that's what we do as a university. We look out on the world and we try to understand the world. So some of these concepts of reading are really embedded in the places that we live on, the names of the places that we live on. So I just wanted to add that. It's a very difficult concept to translate. I appreciate what Jenny and Larry just explained. And I think we need to look at all the resources, including place names, to try to understand how people on the islands saw the world and read the world. So that's all I wanted to add. Thanks, Karin.
Thank you, Don. And I know our Kushai team, their camera's not on, but maybe people are like, yes, because I think we're going to be hearing more about place names. That was, at least I think for most of our groups, so definitely I know for our Kushai group that was a really powerful anchor for them in their discussions about geoliteracy. Thank you, Don. All right. Oh, okay, I'm so excited. This is fun. But I'm going to hand it back to our MCs to take us to the next thing.
Okay, thank you. Is my partner on? Can I see you, Ishi?
Thank you so much, Corinne. Everybody, I'm here. Kathy.
Okay.
Just
All right.
the computer, you know, I'm actually shorter than the screen, so probably don't see.
Well, great. Good to know you're still awake. Well, thank you all.
Comment from
We have a comment from Chuk. Yes, share your comment, Chuk.
It's not really a comment, ma'am. It's actually a question out of curiosity.
Ooh, okay.
How do a reading of the sky, the water and land determine the social activities both on land and out in the water?
Yeah, and that question to
anybody.
Anybody? Oh gosh, okay. Anybody who has the answer, maybe Emerson, you have the answer, or anybody who wants to answer that question? Corinne?
Oh gosh. Okay. No, I don't have the answer to that question, but I do think that it depends on where you are, right? Like Larry, I think others gave examples of what's happening in one place is telling us more about what's happening in a different place in our skies, our lands, and our waters.
Next question.
And oh my gosh, I feel goofy even trying to attempt to answer this question because Fuanpei has way more examples of social activities, right, that happen and that are triggered by events that are happening in the environment. Fuanpei, Chuk, like, yeah, you guys have tons of examples.
Yeah, like, there's plenty of examples in Chuk that I'm pretty sure can be shared from that room already.
You know the answer more than me.
Yes. They know the answer. Look at him laughing.
Or maybe they're testing us. Okay, let's see.
What did we remember?
No, for Pohnpei, the annual feasts are a testimony for what's happening on land. So there's a nopoi where you show respects to the Namarki and the village clans, and you give offerings of the first breadfruits. Yeah. So there's with the breadfruits, and then also the same thing with the yam. So these are already social activities that we already anticipate on a yearly basis based on what's happening on the land.
Go ahead. In mana on? Wait, I'm gonna mute my.
Oh, I thought Chuk was gonna answer the question for us.
Yeah, Chuk.
Someone's going.
Okay, Dr. Jolime has some things to add. Hold on.
Good afternoon again, everyone. I'd like to first express my tiro. Cafe wrong any samat atemirit. He posed a very interesting question. I didn't mean to alter Roosevelt. But I'm just going to share something based on my own experience. Walter Roosevelt. If I understand his question, it's like, how can we base what we do based on what we read from the environment? Is that the question? Growing up as a little girl, when I see, or when the community sees the moon, when it is full, immediately they know that, they're going to find a lot of crabs, or fish is easy to catch. That's one example. And sometimes I hear the elder men coming back from the land based on their observation. I just continue. They often observe the breadfruit tree because that's a source of food for the community. And they would come home and they would say, "Abit sot." It's a term that helps the families happy because they know breadfruit season is coming. So I don't mean to prolong my response, but just something to share to Roosevelt. Thank you.
Thank you. Krisutapur Mamar. Thank you. Any other comments before we move forward?
Yeah, maybe I could just
Okay.
acknowledge also the presence of Hemayanarman Mariano Sai. Very, very good question from my father over there in Chuk. Duro Walfairo. I think that Sai just basically remind me that the teaching that he's been teaching me and others that are coming had to be always affiliated with the Micronesian way of being respectful, and it comes with a lot of humility. And I'd like to believe that the teaching that Mariano taught me and others of my uncles, great uncles, has always been that, that humility of you being at the very bottom of that breadfruit tree, so that you can become the root of that breadfruit tree, understand when that tree eats and what it eats and when it eats and what it drinks and when it sleeps, so that you have a better perspective on it. Likewise, to the understanding of the ocean and the skies are similar in that context. I'm humbled by his presence again to remind us that the very fundamental to this geoliteracy that we talked about is that of respect and humility. And I should shut up and not say, because in his presence I am humble, and I will not even attempt to answer his questions because I think he should be the one answering that question for us, as I do know. But out of his humbleness and humility, he challenged all of us to be the best we can in understanding our environment. Of course, today we have scientists who are teaching how to understand all of these elements, but I think they came long after our ancestral scientists have also taught us a lot of science about trees and oceans and skies. And yes, they are all interrelated in one way or another. They affect each other. They don't function separately. They function in a way that they do, and the byproduct of it allows human society to dictate how we can live. I think so many teachers before us have always given us that understanding that we are not in control. We are just part of it. And the more we become part of it, the better we can understand it and go about our daily business. But yes, I'm grateful for Mariano's question and his presence, and I will give him a phone call after this to ask him the answer. Mariano,
Thank you, Larry. I agree with you on that part.
So that I exceed other tools in the discussion. So I'm staying at the bottom of the pharaonic stage. Thank you.
Thank you. Kirisotapur. Okay, well, thank you all. If no more comments from anybody, and of course we all agree. In the comments, you have to translate our language into English. What is that question, guiding question that we have, instead of translating that English into our languages, because it's kind of hard for us to find the right terms. But anyway, thank you all to the ISLETs for sharing the meaning of the guiding question translations in your languages. Let's move forward to our next to the next part of our event today. Kanita and Paulina, should we have your light bulb moment? You can guide us through the geoliteracy light bulb moment.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's the best activity. So tune in, everyone.
And thank you, Kathy. Actually, the discussion after the translating of the guiding question is already touched on the light bulb moments. It's sharing of those moments. Corin, can you put up the
Share yan.
So to try to capture what was shared by Dr. Mamamar and Larry, and that was also like at the heart of that question posed by Deacon Mariano. Geoliteracy light bulb moments. In this project, we try to capture those moments where you actually realize you or others in your life are reading the skies, the lands, and the waters. And then we try to show this by representing it in a photo that, you know, can be explained. And we ask folks that were part of our ISLETs to write up a short summary of that moment. So Emerson had shared a link earlier on the chat for the GEM GEM website. And that has some of the early geoliteracy light bulb moments shared by the ISLETs throughout that we collected. Polly, do you have a picture you want to share?
Connie, are you calling on me? Sorry, I can't hear you.
Do you have a picture you would like to share of a geoliteracy light bulb moment?
Nice. I don't have my photo, but I think it's easy for everyone to go ahead. You do yours and I'll do mine after. Whose photo is that? Yours or Joy?
This is my photo. This is a picture of kids in Wallam, youths from Kusrai. So I got to spend a weekend with these kids in Wallam, and one of the activities we did in the afternoon was where they go around and do a scavenger hunt. And one of the last things was a question that they ask. Red skies in the mornings means, and then they had to fill in the blank. Red skies in the evening, and they had to fill in the blank. And it came out with a debate. I just used this picture because it reminds me of that day. It came out in a debate where some of the students were saying how no, red skies in the morning means it's gonna be rainy and stormy. So I want to ask the audience, red skies in the mornings, what does it mean? Is it gonna be a sunny day today, or is it gonna be stormy and rainy? Does anyone want to help me out?
Can I share? How do I share this thing? Okay.
I remember Philemoni shared the same light bulb moment when we did the activity in Majuro at CMI. And he represented it as a way of boys in the dorm and how they knew which day, if it was gonna be a good day for doing laundry or a good day for right?
Oh, don't laundry today. It's going to rain. Okay, that's good.
I just sent a photo to Corinne. If you can share that.
And I found my photo too, so I can share when she's done.
Okay, I can't see.
That's the island that somebody just told a story about. You know, the high island, the rock island, the one where the women have high bras. Magic. So you kind of, you know, it's like you're going down, okay, downhill or something. So that's a word. There's a word called miren lokanao. So mir is, you know, when something is getting cold, after it was really hot. And it's referring to lokanao is after the sun set. And so we, the old people, even to this day, we look at the sunset to read, the day tomorrow. And just looking at the photo, it's shiny. So I guess tomorrow will be a lot of sunshine too. Okay. So according to Lisa, it's a good day to make copra tomorrow. It's copra, making, it's good to go out and make copra tomorrow. Or fishing. What else?
Laundry.
Oh, drying coconuts, laundry. So if it was grayish or say black, then you know that tomorrow's weather will be rainy. So that's one way of observing the skies, or katuing, by looking at the sunset or early 5 in the morning, skies. That's sunset in Majid.
So if the sky is red in the evening, that means tomorrow it's gonna be sunny. But if it's red in the morning, that means today it's gonna be stormy, right?
We'll come to that story another time. We need to do some more observation before we can.
What they have a
So time is what? Itulah. Jam barang di gitu jam. Dalam jam. Oh, itulah.
Sorry, I want to ask.
Okay, that's it.
Someone in the troop room, or Larry, or any of those navigators. If it's red in the morning, is it gonna be stormy today, rainy today?
ya kare ka po telengi per revine ge wewen ge pole tumudan kin ge pole andeuren.
So you directed the question to me?
She's asking you and Larry and the other knowledgeable men in the audience.
The question goes to you now.
Redirect the question, particularly to those people, to those persons who belong, but in a higher echelon or echelon, politically, socially, and culturally. I'm nobody to answer. I remain humble now. I kind of feel cold though. I kind of feel cold by just the color.
Ishiwata shared about how the sunset in Majid, it was a sunset, and so it was red. So that means tomorrow it's gonna be a good day to do make coconut oil or copra. So tomorrow it's gonna be very sunny.
Kani, can you repeat what you were saying? If the sky is?
If it was very red, that means tomorrow, very red at sunset, that means tomorrow it's going to be very sunny, right?
Sunny. I don't know. I cannot read the nature. I'm just.
Ikan hapya paminikina puerao. Metara.
Basically, everybody was already starting to share light bulb moments. When it's plenty of breadfruits, crabs come out, or the octopus come out.
Oh.
Oh.
Well, at least we know a little bit about the complexity of the marine lives when they come out by the orange color. Orange color. But how do they interpret that up in the Marshall? Is it going to be raining tomorrow?
So in the Marshalls, they shared that if it was very red and colorful, very red skies in the evening at sunset, that means tomorrow it's going to be very sunny.
Wow.
Is it the same in Chu?
I don't know, but I'm kind of somehow inclined to agree because I like sunshine.
Okay.
But Mariano is, Sai is just being very humble. I mean, I think there must even be some old sailors saying start something like red sky at night is a sailor's delight. And so from there, you could see that even the Europeans who were seafarers in their own had read that the skies that are red at sundown is a delight for them to set sail. Because if it's red in the next morning, then the day will be stormy. But in as far as size, humbleness, I do know that he reads more than just the color of the skies. It's the pattern of the kind of clouds and how they're behaving in the sunset. So there's more to it than just that color, I think. Turuan mo, Sai.
Okay. If anybody wants to share any other light bulb moments, please do so. So Joy shared that in Koshai, red sky evening means sunny next day as well. Thank you for sharing that, Larry. Can you guys still hear me? Hello.
We can hear you, but to your point, I mean, I think there is a bigger challenge here for you folks.
Power just cut out.
The,
Sorry,
and-
our power just cut out. So I had to make sure.
based on Mariano's comments and questions, I must admit that I too am very interested in the findings of this group and what you've been doing. Only because it interests me too, and I'm sure it interests Sai over in Chuk. We would like to know how the Marshallese elders, how the Koshrayan elders and the Yapis and the Chukis read all these elements, because to us we know that it's been something that plays significant role in what we do. But I would very much like if you could maybe do that, extend that research into actually talking to people like Sai and talking to other folks who are still very much knowledgeable about this stuff, so we can all learn and count Mariano and myself out. But I think there are elders who are still holding those knowledge. We must fear for them taking them down 6 feet underground. So go after them. Someone said the richest and the wealthiest place on planet Earth is 6 feet underground. Let's make sure they don't take them.
Feet on the ground. Thank you, Larry. Actually, yeah, that's very, inspiring to know. I did have a 1 week at ILOOK, and I talked to one elder who was taught how to navigate, or observe skies and things like that since he was young. And just 1 hour that the depth of the information was, it was overwhelming. There's so much to learn. The name of we were given only 1 week, and I wish we had more time, but it is what it is. So apart from what we also had to research, I think the skies and navigating is one of the hardest areas to study, because even the language acquisition, there is so many difficult words to learn. And then there's the angles, the winds coming this way, the winds going that way. I would, every time we would talk, I would stop the old man, after 1 hour, because my brain could not take it. It was really hard. But he told me somebody from University of Hawaii stayed with him for like nine months or so to do their theses, their PhD, something before we went there. So he thought we were going to stay that long, and we say we're there for only 1 week. But just 1 hour, that knowledge is very deep. And I can tell you that it's difficult.
If I may, I'd like to share my life moment, but I actually share screen it.
Let me make sure you can, Joy. Okay, you should be good to do it.
So thank you, Emerson, for sharing this very long time ago life moment. As you can see here, I'll just read it out from my description. This is a place in the remotest part of Kashai. It's called Wala. Connie was there 2 or 3 years ago. So if you can see in this photo, you will notice one single yellow tree amongst all the other mangrove trees. So it's like, this is the only yellow part. And as I was told by elders, this yellow tree remains, it's also a mystery where, and people get to, well, just for your information, they get there by boat. So before any modern tools or technology were ever introduced into Bashai, people get to the shoreline looking for this yellow tree. So it's kind of like a sign where they can, so when the tide is low, people in well they get there by taking the ocean side route, and then they look for this yellow tree to get into the shallow part of the island to get to the shoreline. So to me, I learned that these tree marks the location is like where the channel, they channel them into the shoreline. And this is really my light bulb moment, because I've never I've seen this yellow tree passing by, get to pass by every time I get to Walo, but I never really get to understand what it really signifies. And, you know, it's like, I'll just read it out from the last sentence here. It struck me to think of more about how important our roles in GEM and to reconnect ourselves with nature to move forward, to move toward a sustainable future. So this is kind of like my light bulb moment at the very beginning of GEM. And, you know, I still find this yellow tree as a mystery. And even when I kind of dig deeper into it, I ask the elders, you know, sometimes they cut down the tree and when it grows up, it turns yellow again. That part only. So yeah, that is my light bulb moment. Thank you.
Thanks, Joy. I think we lost Kanita. I think, yeah, their power went out. I'm gonna ask Paulina if there's anything more with our light bulb moments. I don't know if Paulina can hear me. Yeah, they're having a big conversation. What's going on? Yeah. Well, if they invite us in, that'll be good. But if not, that's okay too. So for our light bulb moments, there's actually going to be more opportunity each day for us to share. So if you were inspired by the conversation, definitely bring some for future days. Hey, Miss Paulina. Was there, Polly, was there anything left for the light bulb moment discussion for today?
Oh, no. We can always share tomorrow and
yeah.
Okay.
Yes, so bring, there's gonna be, yes, more discussion tomorrow and in our future days. Okay. All right, I'm gonna hand it back to our MCs.
Oh, thank you all. Thank you very much for those beautiful sharing. Everybody's just very humble to share their knowledge about these kind of ideas. But let's keep in mind that today, the important thing about this learning is to give it to the young generation for them to understand, to appreciate where they come from, to also appreciate their land. So instead of say, where's the rice? They can ask, where's the taro? Where's the breadfruit? Where's the biro? Where is the apot? Yeah. So it's really important that we have to share this, learn from each other, and teach the young generation, the new generation coming up. Of course, we all coming from different clans, different islands. We all have our stories, all those deep stories that we have within our own clans and families and islands. So someday, like Larry said, don't let them take it 6 feet down. Take it before they take it. Let's grab it before they take it to 6 feet down. But anyway, we are coming to closing today. We don't want to stop this because this is a very, very good discussion. All the conversations are very important. And of course, you know, people have to go and rest also before tomorrow because we have a long week. So thank you all for joining us today on this day one of the GEM summer webinar series. Remember, it's weaving together ways to read our lands, skies, and waters. And maybe we change it from our languages, change the translation. How to understand land, skies, air, water, instead of saying read, okay? But tomorrow we will continue with our Jam Local, and we'll still have time for Jam Local tomorrow, right? Yeah. So, but we really want to thank you all. Again, Tiro, and maybe we can also end it with Tiroran, Tiropon, Tiro Aramas, Tiro Re, Tiro Ami Medicine. Kirisotapur. Thank you. Mahalo, Kalangan. Komontata. Yes, come on, partner. You need to come in. Si Jus Maasi, Sulang, Kamakar, Kalangan, and am I missing one?
Kola.
Kulo Malalap. Yay! And salamat po. Maraming salamat
po, Bula.
Ayos, salamat.
Thank you all.
Mote.
Thank you, everyone. If you're
Thank you.
joining us,
See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Jacqueline and Emerson. Bye. Slate.
Cancelelia Mango. Bye.
Kiliso. Mary, Kiliso Sapur.
Really